What I want to talk to you about today is conversion rate optimization, which is essentially how do we get the people who come to our sites, who come to our platforms, to do the things we want them to do, right? So conversion rate is how do we get them to do the different steps we want them to do. And when you think about it, that's not always a straightforward question because there's often many different things we want them to do. Okay, and when you look at conversion rate optimization, it's a huge topic. You've got whole books written about it. And it's really a mixture of art and science. It's a bit of psychology and a bit of technology. And when we're doing conversion rate optimization in an omnichannel world, then we really have to start looking at big data tools and big data analytics to do it right. Okay, so why is that? Well, the thing is the big data tools, the big data analytics are going to give us three things that we're not otherwise going to have in an omnichannel environment. They're going to give us a deep understanding of the customer journey, detailed insights into what is and isn't working with our product, and they're going to give us the tools to steer our customers through the different touch points that we have on the customer journey. Okay, so three things. Deep understanding of the customer journey, detailed insights into what is and isn't working in our products, and the ability to actually steer our customers through these different touch points, the micro and the macro conversions. Okay, so what are these touch points? What are they like? And to give you a little background on myself, what I do is I do independent consulting. I come alongside companies and help them in one of several different ways. Sometimes it's program development, sometimes it's interim analytics leadership, and sometimes it's doing internal trainings for their data scientists. And I work with quite a number of different companies across different sectors, finance, insurance, technology, commerce, and such. And when you look at them, they've all got different conversion events that they want to steer. But just take, for example, a company like Coolblue, which is pretty much a pure play e-commerce company who I worked with. So a company like that, it's obvious they've got the conversion events, which are, customer comes, they make a purchase, right? So it's the obvious conversion event. But if you think about the whole journey, you've got a customer coming to your website, and immediately you'd like that customer to log in, to register, to leave their email address, to get on your mailing list. Okay, that in itself is a micro conversion event. The next thing is you want to link that customer with the products that are most interesting and most relevant for them. Okay, to make that connection, because that's going to increase the potential that they'll eventually make a purchase. So that linkage is itself a conversion event. After the customers place an item in their basket, okay, you want to cross-sell to them, you want to upsell to them. Even after the purchase is complete, you would like that customer to share that on social media. Okay? After they've received the product, you want them to come back a few days later and leave a product review. And in the coming weeks and months, you want them to return to your site for additional purposes, for replenishment, for product replacements. Okay, so these are all conversion events, which all are touch points along the customer journey. So when I'm thinking about conversion rate optimization, I'm thinking about the customer journey. Now, how this connects with big data is that in an omnichannel environment, whenever you're getting detailed analysis into the customer journey, you have to have a big data solution. Okay? So that detailed digital customer journey is going to be a big data problem. So to dig into this and to show you exactly what I mean by this and to give examples of those three points that I mentioned, I want to do a case study from a recent project that I did. Those of you in the Netherlands are familiar with Belvilla. The Germans might be familiar with Casamundo. And there's about a dozen different brands which together make up the At-Leisure Group. So the At-Leisure Group is one of the largest players in the online European market for accommodation rentals. So things like holiday homes, holiday parks, and hotels. Okay? They're a subsidiary of Axel Springer. So they've been growing quite rapidly recently. And if you think about the footprint they have, they give access to about 500,000 properties spread over about 36 countries. And every year, more than 1.3 million people are booking their holidays through an At-Leisure Group property. And so really, they've got a very wide footprint. They've been operating for about 30 years in a traditional manner. And about a year and a half ago, the executive board came to my company and said, hey, we want to start a whole new analytics program. So from the ground up, we want a new analytics program. Can you help us with that? And that involved things like setting the strategy, the road mapping, and helping them build their own internal team who would eventually take charge of this. So it's pretty exciting. And when you do something like that, when you step into an organization, you say, OK, what is it that, how is data and analytics really going to bring value to you as an organization? Then you start with a strategy. You say, OK, what are the focal areas that are most relevant for your business? in those focal areas, what are the business applications? How do we translate those into technical products? And then from that, what's the supporting data we have? And with that, what technologies do we need? What staffing do we need? And eventually you come up with a roadmap, a short-term roadmap and a long-term roadmap. And typically, a large part of that roadmap, what it's going to be is it's going to relate to conversion rate optimization. Okay? So for the At Leisure product, it did. And for most companies, it is. And why is that? Okay, when you're talking about conversion rates, obviously it connects directly to your revenue. Okay, it's often the sales events, the subscription events, that type of thing. But it's also going to tie in very closely to a lot of your operations. It's going to influence how you do marketing, how you do product development, how you do sales, customer support. Everything that supports those conversion events is going to be affected by it. And ultimately, it's going to support your strategic goals because it's going to lead to a much better customer experience. Okay? So optimizing your conversion rate, getting your customers to step through those points you want them to hit and do the things you want them to do is not just about making more money, it's about creating a better customer experience because in the end, they're having successful engagement with you. Okay? They're finding the products they want to find quickly. Okay? They're being recommended products that are most relevant for them. Okay? So it's really a holistic picture. And so what happens is, a large part of your analytics roadmap will relate to conversion rate optimization. And that's what we found here. So I mentioned 3 areas, and the first area I mentioned was the deep customer insights that you'll get from the big data analytics. And I want to illustrate why that is. So Belvila has this particular challenge that they're big ticket items, which typically are only engaged annually. Okay, so I want to book my summer holiday for 2 weeks. I come to Belvila typically once a year to do that. Well, some people come more often, but typically it's a large purchase, infrequent interaction. And so when I come back to Belvila in early January to look at next summer's holiday, Belvila doesn't know who I am anymore. Okay, probably I'm coming from a new device, the cookies are gone. I'm not even going to register or log in until I'm getting close to booking. However, there's a tremendous amount, and the other thing is that as I start to browse for my holiday rental, you know how it is. When you book a vacation, you never just sit down and do it, right? You start looking, you start talking, you look at one site, you come back, and it's typically a course of several weeks, maybe even months, before you book your property. Okay? So what happens then is you can't simply rely on the actual booking event as your target. You have to start to understand, is the customer moving in the right direction, which is going to eventually lead them towards conversion, or is it possible that they'll churn and go to a different site and book on a different site instead? So it's extremely important to watch the customer journey, to understand where they hit the micro-conversion events and whether they're going in the right way, and to steer them towards an eventual booking. Okay? So how does this look? So if you look at the landing page here, I'm really only finding out 3 things about my customer when they come. I'm finding out where they want to go, very roughly, when they want to go, and the occupancy. Okay? Very little information. Then they hit that beautiful orange button down there, Zukin. And from over 1,200 properties, I have to decide which ones to return, the top pretty much half dozen, to return to them at the top of the fold. Okay? So there's not a good chance I'm going to find the most relevant thing yet. At this point, they get to start selecting filters, and the game begins of showing them the property that's going to be most relevant to them. Okay? I can let them steer that by just returning them what they ask for, or I can start to learn from them and start increasing relevance as they browse through. And as you all know, it's extremely frustrating to try and find the right accommodation rental for holiday. And the more a site can help you find what's really relevant for you, the better it is. So what is the big data going to do for us? If you look at a typical customer journey, it'll look something like this. Okay, so the customer enters, they enter, I want to go to southern France in July with 4 people. They'll get the page I just showed you. Probably the first thing they'll do is they'll go to a filter. They'll start to specify, I want a house between 1,000 and 1,400. It should have a barbecue, air conditioning. It should take pets. Now, this is extremely important because what I've got here is I know what the customer had in their mind when they first started looking for a vacation house. Okay? I know what was top of mind for them when they came in. And this is going to change over the next couple weeks. Okay? But I know where they started from, and I'll see how it changes. Okay, so now I can see where they clicked on a property. This is the clickstream data. If I'm actually watching what they're doing, I can see where they clicked on a property, how long they stayed in that property before going to the next one. okay, then I can see the next property they only stayed for 5 seconds before going back to the first one for 90 seconds. So now I'm already finding out about their preferences. I'm finding out that that second property probably I shouldn't even have shown them to them, right? But the first property was a hit. That was something, a micro-conversion, where I've really had a bit of stickiness with what I showed them. Now they go back to the filters and they raise their maximum price and they raise their occupancy. And what am I finding out about the customer? I'm finding out that this person has flexibility in their price. Okay, I didn't know that from their initial search, but from their subsequent searches, I'm finding that out. Okay, now they're viewing another property, they stay in it for 200 seconds, and they favor that property. Okay, that's another conversion event, a micro-conversion event, because I've seen that this person is definitely interested in this property, which they may not book for another 2 weeks. Okay? But by understanding that that type of property was interesting to them, I can steer the rest of their visit towards that type of property. Okay, now they start looking at Italy. Okay, now this is also very interesting because I realized that some people who are interested in southern France might also be interested in Italy. Okay, so I'm making a connection. I'm learning about the customer because I see this clickstream data. Okay, and on it goes. Eventually, they're making a booking. So where I get this is I get this from the clickstream data, from the detailed big data that I have from the web logs. Okay, and there's different ways to get this, but this is the big data because I'm going to get this detailed journey for every single customer, every single visitor who comes to my platforms. And it doesn't matter if they log in. It doesn't matter that I know them or not, who they are. It doesn't matter that I know that they came last year or not. I'm finding out about the preferences and the flexibility of my customers because I can start digging into this. Okay? And there's a lot of ways I can use this data once I have it in there. But it's the big data, and I have to think about how to store it and eventually how to analyze it and apply it. Okay? So that's the deep understanding of customers. The next thing is the detailed insight into what is and isn't working. This is really key with big data in e-commerce, and you're probably familiar with A/B testing and split testing and such. But it goes further than that. So one of the things that booking companies know is that better pictures lead to more bookings, more revenue and such. So you know that you want your pictures to be better. And there's different ways you can try and evaluate if a picture is good or not. Okay, you can try and do machine learning algorithms for which you need certain scoring, and it's a supervised learning method. But we found that there was an even easier way to do this using the big data solution. So here's an example where someone searches for a property in southern France, and we're returning 5 properties to them. They're seeing very little about the property, but they're seeing the picture. And we'd like to make sure the pictures are good pictures, which are effective in gathering people's interests. Rather than doing some sort of complicated AI, what we did is we looked at the big data and we said, how many of these pictures actually are getting clicked on as we show them? Because we have all the session level data, all of the web log data, and we know every time we showed each picture, and we know every time that property was clicked on. And we could start comparing it. So now we've got these 2 houses, for example, which stood out to us. They're both in southern France, both about the same price range, the same occupancy. Which of these pictures looks more attractive to you? So how many would say the first one, the top one? Okay, how many would say the bottom one? Okay, it's pretty even, roughly. So it turned out when we looked at the data, we had to show that top picture in search results on average 3 times before it got clicked on. So if we return that property in 3 search results, one of those times it would typically get clicked on. Not booked, but viewed, right? The bottom property, on the other hand, we'd have to show it 600 times before anyone would even click on it. Okay? So this one was calling out, replace me, get a better picture, right? That's just clicking to view the property. Once you click to view the property, you'd see the interior pictures, you'd see the calendar, and then you wanted to eventually go on to book the property. So we said, okay, it's not enough just to get the property viewed, we want to see it clicked. So you look at that top picture again, which on average was clicked 1 in 3 times. The bottom picture on average was clicked 1 every 36 times. But the bottom picture, once it was clicked on, it was actually booked much more often. And we could see that from the big data too. So you could start to see the whole conversion funnel, and you could see from the big data which properties were ultimately more effective, not only at engagement, but ultimately booking. Then you plug in the revenue figures, how much you would earn from it, the expected return from showing a property in the search result. And you can start to really quantify what would come out of showing which picture to which user, right? And you can segment this also. So this is how the big data really gave us, and the numbers are all made up, by the way. And I should mention, now I know you guys, most of you live in Europe, and these properties are privately owned, so there's a small chance someone in this room actually owns one of these properties. So my apologies if that's the case. And I will say that most of the numbers are actually slightly fabricated. So if you do own that property, don't take it too personally. Yeah. Good. So that's the second way, the detailed insights into how our product is doing. And I could give a whole talk on this one. It's a very broad topic. The third way is actually steering our customers through the customer journey. Okay, this is where we're really making an impact and helping our customers succeed as they come to our site. I mentioned that there's a tremendous amount of inventory. Your customers it's a very important decision for them where they book their holiday. There's a lot of competition, right? So you really want to help them find their product, find their dream home in some sense, as quickly as possible. So when we talked about this strategy matrix that we put together, one of the first things that we put on there was in the customer journey focus area, our business goal was to help our customers find properties quickly. Okay, that was a very important goal. In terms of an analytic project, that translates into the standard recommender engine, which you probably heard quite a bit about. Okay, then we look at the data we have available, and we thought about what tools do we have in staffing to actually build a recommender engine to help our customers along their journey. And I'll end by talking about how we did that. And this is going to be slightly more technical because I know there's some technical people in the room. So essentially, what we did is we looked for a low threshold solution where we could very quickly build a recommender engine for this company with minimal effort. And what we did is we leveraged the existing Google Analytics tags. The company switched to Google Analytics Premium, which allows quick access to Google's BigQuery, from which we could very easily put the session level data, the clickstream data, essentially the big data, into a cloud store, from which we could do analysis, like the picture analysis that I showed. But it wasn't enough for the recommender engines that we wanted to build. So we had an additional system that we put in place, a graph-based system, which we could then populate and then send the data back to our web server, at which point we could start recommending properties. So why is this key? A couple reasons. One is that even as a customer searches for something in southern France, we know that northern Italy is comparable to southern France for many people. So we might start wanting to recommend these properties that the customer is not searching for. Okay, as they're searching for ski slopes in Austria, we may also recommend a ski slope in the Czech Republic. Something they don't have in their mind when they come, but we know it's relevant for them. So we put this system in place. And the second thing we wanted to do is we wanted to make it real time. Okay, we knew we'd learn from the customers during the course of their visit, and we wanted to be able to say that 2 minutes into your browsing experience, we're providing more relevant results than when you first came. Okay, we wanted that recommender engine to fit the customer's preferences as they came in. So then what we did is we did a few technical tricks. We put in RabbitMQ, which is a messaging service, and ended up with a real-time streaming recommender engine, which we could then feed in with Elasticsearch to order the search results so that when those search results came back, they were in an order that was most meaningful for that particular guest. And we could hook it into customer support and direct marketing. So it was sort of beneficial in every way. So this was the third way. So again, we talked about the deep understanding of customer journey, the detailed insights into what is and isn't working in your product, and the ability to steer and help your customers. And ultimately then what we're getting not only a better performance of our site in terms of increased revenue and effectiveness, but we're ultimately getting a better customer experience so that these customers who are coming looking for their summer holiday can very quickly and easily find it. So pretty happy in terms of that final use case for that. That is all I have time for, but feel free to email me, contact me if you have any follow-up questions for me. Thanks.